Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
That floor is ours.
Shabbat Shalom. It is good to be with you on this Shabbos evening. We are delighted to have you joining our Temple Shir Tikvah community, whether you are joining us here in our sanctuary. We're so glad to have you here. If you're joining us in our digital community, we love you and we see you here in our sanctuary, and we are so glad to have you joining us here as well. We are celebrating, we are so glad to be back here in our sanctuary celebrating Shabbat as the quiet of the evening, the last little bit of light over the trees you can see is leaving us in the quiet of the evening, and the joy of community and together time begins, and we are just pleased as punch to be celebrating with you all tonight. So we are going to begin our service. We're going to bring the light of Shabbat, of community, of B'nai Mitzvah into our community as tomorrow we celebrate two, not one, but two bat mitzvahs. What joy to be in our community together.
There's only 8 people on.
Turn to page 1 for the blessing for lighting the candles. It is a delight to call Annabelle and her family up to light one set of candles, as well as Helen and your family up to the bima as well, to light these candles and bring the light of your family and your celebration and share it with our community. Okay, we carry back. Great, thanks. We're keeping you too. Okay. It's gonna take more. Yep, there. We continue on page 5. Shir Ladonai, sing a new song. Continue on page 11, Lecha Dodi, we sing our welcome of Shabbat. Together we'll sing stanzas 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we reach stanza 9 at the bottom of page 12, I'll gesture like this, hopefully not hitting any B'nai Mitzvah students, and invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we reach stanza 9, turn and face the back of the sanctuary, welcoming Shabbat into our presence. So we begin on page 11, Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Shabbat. Turn to page 16. On the right-hand column, 3 paragraphs down, find Baruch Hu, dear one, and invite each other home into this sanctuary of community and prayer. Continue at the bottom of page 16. Sing Ma'ariv Aravim of the seasons, of the cycles that mark our life, rolling into dark and light, and dark and light again. Words
into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night, roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day.
interconnectivity of all. We turn to the bottom of page 17 and invite ourselves to listen for that oneness which stands behind everything.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod
acts of kindness and compassion and love that are to fill our days and our nights. Put your finger, we're going to begin on page 18, or put your finger in page 20. And we're going to chant the first paragraph of page 18 and then move directly to the second paragraph on page 20. At the bottom of page 21. Singing the words the Israelites sang when they crossed to freedom. Micha Mocha, reminder, even in the darkest of times, we are on a journey towards freedom. Turn to page 25 as we prepare to enter the Amidah, the heart of our service this evening. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit.
Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Mahano. מביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל דיבורו ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Take this time for our own private prayers and reflections. Prayers of your tradition, the tradition are in the prayer book. Prayers of your heart are always welcome in this sanctuary. When you are done, you may be seated. We turn now to page 130. Turning our hearts and our prayers and our voices towards those who seek wholeness and healing in this broken and sick world. If there is someone you are praying for and you are joining us in our digital community, we invite you to use the chat function, the technology you are using to join us, to add the person's name in prayer. If you are here in our sanctuary, I invite you to raise your hand. It would be an honor to indicate towards you so you can say that person's name aloud after we have read the names of those who are on our community healing list.
As a community, we pray for the healing of Arave Alexander, Tal Schechter, Lloyd Frank, for Joyce, for Cheryl Doxer, David Gordon, Sue Gordon, for Sue Iams, for Nancy Alpert, Ayelet Bat Chava V'Her Shmuel, for Phoebe Einzigroth, Debbie Gilman, for Neil Daniels Midman, Michael Berman, Anya Kabel, for Sue Boardman, Sarah Kianowski, Debbie Sachs-Bouteau, for Stanley Roth, and for Kathy Knapp.
Mary Jean Warlock.
Sandy Joe.
All those named for all who seek wholeness for themselves. We'll pray the words all the way on the right of page 130.
We turn back to page 84 to Psalm 27. Psalm 27 has been assigned to this month that we're in, this month of Elul in the Hebrew calendar. Some people read it every single day, taking a line maybe each day and interpreting it for themselves, what it's speaking to them. And one of the songs that comes from Psalm 27 is found right in the middle of the page. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai, in that bold print. One thing I ask, for this I yearn, that I may dwell in God's house for all the days of my life. That is one of the reasons that we have this month of Elul. It's taken on such a sacred quality in our tradition to get us ready for Rosh Hashanah, for Yom Kippur, to wake us up. What are you asking? What is your one question? Sha'alti, says the psalmist. This is my question. I'd like to be in the house of God forever. And after we sing this, we are going to be treated to a blast of the shofar, because that is also a tradition in this month of Elul, to hear the blast of the shofar once a day, saying, ooh, ooh, start waking up, start getting ready, so that we are not arriving at Rosh Hashanah without having done some of the soul work that we need to do. And I find even the melody of Achat Sha'alti to wake me up, to bring such a beauty. So it goes like this. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Can we repeat that? Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti b'veit Adonai kol yamei hayai lachazot b'noam b'noam Adonai ulevaker b'heichalo lachazot b'noam b'noam Adonai ulevaker b'heichalo. So how do we become the people we want to be in this world? I think asking questions is a very good way. Don't have to know the answers, but finding the questions. So let the rock of this song, the sway of it, the rhythm of it, start to wake up that question in you, or other questions in you. Sing it one more time. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti b'veit Adonai kol yamei hayai lachazot b'noam b'noam Adonai ulevaker b'heichalo lachazot b'noam b'noam Adonai ulevaker b'heichalo. Now we are going to get Sharon Solomon onto our screen. Hello, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. And with the sound of the shofar in our ears, blessing us, calling us to wake up, we turn to page 31. Find ourselves called in this new year to make peace. Page 31.
Oseh shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. May the one who makes peace above make peace descend on all of us, and Israel will stay. All right, let's break it down into a round. Oh, say shalom, bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. May the one who makes peace above make peace
Welcome to Elul. The shofar gives it away. Achat Sha'alti reminds us year after year where we are. I think of Elul as a liminal time. It is the countdown to the holidays, but it's not yet the holidays. It's when I start planning the menu, but I haven't bought the food yet, and I still haven't figured out what time dinner's gonna be. It is usually, not last year, but certainly this year, a time when my kids' year has started, because their school year started, and all of those rhythms have started. And I want to say Happy New Year, but it's not. It feels wrong to say Happy New Year when it's not quite New Year yet. And so I just, and don't get me started on what kind of clothing this time of year requires in New England, because I don't understand it. Neil and I were having a conversation before services started today about if you needed to wear woolens in September and also tank tops. So, you know, your New England weather has continued to defy my understanding of definitions. And yet, it's all almost right there, right? I mean, some of it has started. Our Sunday school program has kicked off, our learning board program, and you feel those first crisp mornings, and they're telling you that fall is really coming. And this morning when I opened the door, the crunch of leaves went with the door, you know, which is sort of the sound that tells you that, yes, you're almost there. We're almost at New Year. And yet we're not. We're so very, very, very far from that last hakafah that we do holding a Torah and circling this sanctuary and dancing joyfully. And I always find myself wondering, and maybe it's my profession admittedly, but how do you get from here to there? How do you get from not quite the holidays to we went through the holidays? Take out holidays and substitute something else in your life that's approaching, but you're not there yet, and you're not sure how you're going to get there. Because this week in our Torah portion, we get a little taste of one of the ways to take those journeys in those liminal periods of time. This week we have Moses, we have the instruction of the mitzvah of the first fruits that are going to be offered in the sanctuary. And it's a mitzvah that really only applies once the Israelites are going to be in the land, not only in the land, settled in the land, not only settled in the land, but the temple's going to be built and functioning, and then and only then will this mitzvah apply. It's a mitzvah that says that you are to bring a basket of produce to the temple, you are to offer it to the priest, you are to set it on the altar, and that the pilgrim who brought this first fruit offering would then recite a scripted summary of all of the history of Israel, from the days of Jacob all the way down through the slavery in Egypt to the current day settled in the land. So imagine this. You're not in the land yet. You're not there. And you're being instructed on what you will have to do once you're there. And once you're there, you're going to have to turn around and look about what came before you got there. It's this very funny loop of time that the mitzvah creates. And the passage that we recite is actually, or that the pilgrims would have recited, is a passage that we still recite once a year for Passover. When we say, when we start with the line, "My father was a wandering Aramean," you know that line? That's it. That's the first fruit offering. That's what the pilgrims stood on the temple and said about And then they went on, and as should we in the story, by the way. But that's what they would say. And Rav Claudia Kreiman notes about this mitzvah that has this funny time loop built into it, where you're moving forward when you're given the mitzvah, and then backwards once you're doing the mitzvah. She notes that this is one of the only rituals found in the Torah with such great detail, and it is unique in the fact that it is liminal liturgy, within a time after leaving but before arriving, where hope is yet possible. So you're not there yet, and the tradition is saying you're gonna get there. You gotta hold on to hope, but once you get there, you gotta turn around and look at what happened beforehand. And in that moment of looking forward and moving backwards and looking backwards and moving forwards, Rav Claudia sees hope, sees possibility, sees anything that good that could come of it. And I, who love clarity more than anything else, I'm a little bit overwhelmed by it all. It feels a little bit chaotic. It feels like when I'm standing in the morning looking at my kids' drawers trying to figure out if they should wear shorts or t-shirts or wool mittens or all of the above, and don't start me on the fact that Dee Dee actually wore a winter parka to school this week. So I look at this playing with time and get a little overwhelmed. Rev Claudia looks at this playing time and sees possibility, sees great connectivity and possibility. You could be one or the other, you could be somewhere in between. I'd love to hear from you about which one you are. It'll give me insight into what's happening in your head most of the time, or some of the time. But I'd like to suggest that the Bikurim ritual offers us a path, no matter how we feel about this kind of liminal space, liminal time. Because it is highly scripted. It tells you what to do. Whether or not the chaos feels overwhelming or feels inviting, it says first, you bring your basket. I think of that as acknowledging your gratitude. Look around, see what is around you, and name it if it's good. Create a little basket of it so that it is easily accessible and something that can be brought with you. Second, tell the story of how you got to where you are. So often we're busy rushing forward in our days and in our stories. We rarely, and occasionally we have these great moments where we get to step back and see the passage of time. But I think the first fruit ritual is an invitation to do that more frequently. When you are feeling overwhelmed, or like there is infinite possibility in front of you, take the time to know for yourself how you got to where you are. And third, in the ritual, the fruit would be given to the priests, to the temple. Share your abundance. So often we find that when we give, we receive so much more in return. It's a crazy world out there right now. Many people tell me it feels pretty out of control and like it's not clear if we're moving forward or backwards. And we're probably doing a little bit of both. But I think that as the new year approaches and as we move through this time, that we can rededicate ourselves to the spiritual practices contained in the first fruits. we can rededicate ourselves to acknowledging our gratitude, telling the stories of how we got there, and sharing our abundance with those in need. And when we do, I have a feeling that we will find blessings on the road. May it be a good journey for us all. We continue on page 44. Opening our hearts and our community to the memory of those whose lives and life continue on in us, to those whose eternity lies in our memories, in our connection, in our ongoing love.
As a community, we are remembering Adele Ack, the grandmother of Liz Kaplan and grandmother-in-law of Dan Gordon, who died just this week. It is the yahrzeit of Eric Nass's beloved mother, Marilyn Nass, and of Josh Bear's father, Abraham Bears. In this year of memory, we think of Michael Slonim, Stuart Fay, Al Levin, Claude Lieber, Ruth Zipperstein, Marvin Silverston, Janet Kandel, Ken Blumberg, Henry Wolfson, Erwin Lebo, Helen Fine, Wynne Musgrave, Sue McHugh, and Bob Ruxin. And if you are remembering someone tonight, or if someone is feeling particularly close to your heart, please raise your hand. We'd be honored to call on you. Karen.
My father, S. Harold Rosen.
If you are joining us digitally, we invite you to use the chat function to share the names of your loved ones who you are remembering. As we turn to page 44 and rise in body or in spirit, becoming one community of memory. Together we say, Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirte v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Leolam Olamei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitroman V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei D'Kudusha B'richu Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiram Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. May the one who makes peace in the heavens make peace for us, for all Israel, and all who dwell on earth. And let us say, you may be seated.
I'd like to offer just the biggest mazel tov to the note mitzvah of this evening, Annabelle, and to Helen. Annabelle's service is at 10 and Helen's is at 4. And to all of your families, mazel tov to you. So glad you're here with us tonight. And we are going to conclude on page 45 with Adon Olam. It is wonderful to kick off the season for B'nai Mitzvah, but also just being back here in the sanctuary together. Last week we were out in the tent, and so this is our first service in the sanctuary all together of the fall. We're looking forward to, just a very festive fall. We have, I think, so many B'nai Mitzvah between now and the middle of November, I think 9. So there will be many festive Friday nights, and so please come and warm the sanctuary with us each Friday night. And I'm wondering, Helen and Annabelle, if you would come on back up and lead us in Adon Olam. If any siblings would like to come up, you are welcome too. Thank you, Ruthie. Oh, and Noah, thank you. Dina, you coming up too? Excellent. And when we finish singing Adon Olam, we'll do a quick Kiddush and Motzi up here, and there is a beautiful oneg downstairs under the balcony, right outside in the backyard. The tent is up, and it'll be a beautiful night out there. So we'll see you downstairs. All right. 1, 2, 3. Adon Olam Asher Malach
Asher Malach
Yitzir Nivah Le'et Nasa V'Chevsoko Azar Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam Ve'acharei Kiglot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Oseh Ve'hu Yeh B'Tifara Adon Olam Adon Olam Asher Malach V'terem Kol Yitzir Nirah Le'et Nasa V'Chevsoko Azar Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam V'hu Echad V'yein Sheni L'am Shelo L'Hachbira Adon Olam V'li Reshit V'li Tachlit V'lo Ha'oz V'Hamisra Adon Olam Adon Olam Asher Malach V'terem Kol Yitzir Nirah Le'et Nasa V'Chevsoko Azar Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam V'hu Eli V'chai Go'ali V'tzor Kavli Beit Sarah Adon Olam V'hu Nisi Uman Nosli Menakosei B'yei Akra Adon Olam Adon Olam Asher Malach V'terem Kol Yitzir Nirah Le'et Nasa V'Chevsoko Azar Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam Be'ado Akid Ruchi Be'tishan Ve'a'ira Adon Olam V'im Ruchi Gevi'ati Adon Olam Adon Olam Asher Malach V'terem Kol Yitzir Nirah Le'et Nasa V'Chevsoko Azar Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam. Whew, nice job, you guys. And now we'll hold up that. Would one of the Benot Mitzvah like to hold up the Kiddush cup? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. It's grape juice.
That's a lot of wine. Whose beautiful cover is this?
My grandmother.
So look at this gorgeous. Amazing. Air touch the challah. Come on, reach your hands forward. Air touch the challah, everyone. Yeah, there you go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Mazel tov all around. See you downstairs out in the backyard.